The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog's offering a ton of fun markets this week for the PGA Championship that you cannot find anywhere else. So sign up with the promo code SGPN to claim your special pick and a first-time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. Underdog Fantasy, promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by the Mega Memorial Merch Sale, as we have 15% off everything in the SGPN merch store with the promo code SGPNMay. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently Saturday afternoon, roughly 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time on May 18th. I'm your host, always, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Should be a short episode, but a fun one, because we have one match to preview. It is championship match time. It is time to get into the actual final of a Masters 1000 event, as we have Jarry taking on Zverev in the Rome final in the Italian Open. So looking forward to breaking down that match. Before into any of that, though, do want to take care of some housekeeping. Want to remind you once again to like and subscribe on YouTube. Also a reminder to rate and review the podcast on Spotify or Apple. We could use more reviews, so if you do like the show or even hate the show, leave a review, and definitely appreciate the feedback. Also a reminder to check out the merch store, because we have a lot of great Tennis Gambling Podcast merch. We have, for example, t-shirts, different colors, green, white, black, a lot of different options for shirts. Also have sweatshirts. So if you do want to get yourself a hoodie with the Tennis Gambling Podcast logo on it, we do have that also in the merch store. And a reminder that if you do want to get something from the merch store, you can get the Tennis Gambling Podcast merch with 15% off, because we have a Mega Memorial Day merch sale. So 15% off everything with the promo code SGPNMay. Or maybe if you want a show from, let's say, a piece of merchandise from another show, if you want an NBA Gambling Podcast shirt, WNBA Gambling Podcast shirt, really anything you could think of, college experience. We have a lot of shows, and they all have merchandise, so check out the merch store for a great 15% off deal that will not be around for much longer. Anyway, time to start off with the actual recap of the semifinals, which took place on Friday. So getting into the actual recap, starting off with the lock and dog picks. Overall, decent episode. Didn't sweep, but did not get reverse swept, so could have been worse. Ended up splitting. Did lose the lock with Jarry and Paul under. Half a tiebreak at minus 138. Got to the first set, and then I was right about my overall stance that neither guy would end up holding 6 straight times each to result in a tiebreak. That was exactly what did not happen. The problem was each guy did break once, and that ended up offsetting as they went to a breaker in the second set. However, did make up for it, as we had the over 2.5 sets of plus 125, and that got there as you ended up seeing Paul win the second set tiebreak pretty easily, and then Jarry won the third set easily, 6-3. So either way, point is, ended up splitting the 2 plays from that Jarry and Paul match. As for the actual recap of the matches, we had 2 very fun back and forth affairs. So you had a shocking first set in the opening match, as Tabilo killed Zverev early on, as he won the first set 6-1. Then Zverev settled in, as he won the second set 7-6. And at that point, you can kind of tell the momentum had swung, and Zverev did bury Tabilo in the third set, as he won 6-2 in the finale. So Zverev ended up getting the job done. It was not easy, didn't cover the spread, didn't really cover anything. But the over 2.5 sets we did lean to on the previous episode of plus 180. That did get there, and Tabilo to win a set did get there at around plus 105. Either way, though, great tournament for him. He was able to beat Djokovic. He was able to beat Khachanov, and he made a good run. Unfortunately, Zverev was a bit too solid in the latter stages of the match, and Tabilo's level dipped, and that was all that Zverev needed in order to get the job done. Now, that's going to do it for the first match. Second match was the Jarry-Paul one, exactly the way that I thought it would play out, with the exception of the breaker in the second set. But I thought it would be a war. I thought it was a coin flip. Did lean to Paul initially, but I did think it was going to be a very, very close back and forth match. And it was, as you ended up seeing both guys have moments to break through. And it really came down to a couple break points. And then eventually it seemed like Paul, I don't want to say ran out of gas, but it seemed like Jarry's power was just eventually wearing Paul down. And it seemed like he found his range and his consistency, at least enough to get the job done. It was not an easy final game, as Jarry was up, I believe it was 40-love in the final service game at 5-3, had 4 match points, blew them, then Paul had 2 break points, Paul blew those, and then Jarry eventually converted his 5th match point. So Jarry got the job done eventually in 3, and he has a shot to win a Masters 1000 title, so we will see what happens. But get into any of the actual news going around, not in Rome, I want to briefly mention something that has to do with next week's schedule as we actually do have 2 events. We have one in Geneva and one in Lyon. For Geneva, though, there was a surprising wild card entry for the event at the last minute. Novak Djokovic. Djokovic decided that after losing in Rome, he needed more reps. French Open, I believe, starts the 26th. So he decided, you know what, I have no titles. I've not really played much on clay. I need to get going. So Djokovic will be playing in Geneva in a 250, which is kind of shocking. But when you think about the actual context, it does make sense, since he kind of needs to make sure he has his best, I'd say, performances in the French Open. So the more reps, the better for him, especially after he switched coaches. So that also can help build some chemistry between him and his new coach. Besides that, though, nothing else to really talk about. Wanted to mention Djokovic, though, and now it's time to move on into actually, I forgot one more thing. Swiatek ended up destroying Sabalenka in the final on Saturday. Not a surprise. I think Swiatek is probably the best clay female player that I've seen in a long time, arguably ever. She's dominant on clay, and I'm not shocked that she ended up winning comfortably. Sabalenka was able to get to the final, but it was not the easiest path for her. In fact, she had to deal with some adversity, and I just felt like that the fatigue would eventually set in for her, and it did. And Swiatek was able to bury her and win her second title against Sabalenka in the final in about 2-3 weeks. So good for Sabalenka for making a deep run. Unfortunately, though, she was not able to put up as good of a fight as she did previously against Swiatek. But either way, point is, Iga continues to roll, and she won another clay title. She's going to be my pick to win the French Open. It is what it is. But the point is, good for her for getting another title. Now, as for everything else, nothing else to really go through for any tennis news, etc. So time to move on into the actual preview of the final. But before we get into any of that, do want to remind everybody once again that we are brought to you by NYR Bets, because you don't have much time left, because the Preakness is in about an hour and change. But NYR Bets allows you to bet the second jewel of the Triple Crown, and you can also sign up today for a $200 deposit bonus with promo code SGPN200. Join now to claim your $200 deposit bonus just in time for the Preakness at NYRBets.com/SGPN200. And also, you can earn more on the Preakness Stakes. Bet at least $200 each on Belmont at the Big A and Pimlico for a $4 bonus win or lose. Opt in to win at NYRBets.com. That's on all those. Score big with a 20% bonus on your ticket winnings by hitting exacta on any or all races at Belmont at the Big A on Sunday. So get in and get your bonuses at NYRBets.com/SGPN200. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. The NBA playoffs are here, and our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, wants to make it a lot more interesting because they have a lot of very fun ways to get down on some of your favorite sports. They have, for example, their Pick'em game, which is as simple as selecting higher or lower in player stats like points, rebounds, assists, and so much more. It's the easiest place to play fantasy sports, and on top of that, you can make entries of all basketball, mix and match with your favorite sports, whichever one you want to do. Point is, though, you can win up to 200 times your money, and it's a ton of fun. They have a lot of great options for tennis. They have aces, double faults, breaks of serve, a lot of fun ways to make tennis viewing more interesting. So I recommend checking out the platform. On top of that, they have a lot of great promos for the NBA playoffs because they have bonus cash airdrops, they have specials, they have giveaways, and more throughout the playoffs. So make sure to follow Underdog Picks on Twitter. Keep an eye out. Underdog's available in 30+ states, including California, Texas, and Canada. They also just launched Champions, their player versus player format in Florida. To sign up with the promo code SGPN to claim your special pick and a first-time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. Underdog Fantasy, promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished recapping what happened in the semis in Rome. Now it is time to get into the actual final between Zverev and Jarry. For the actual info regarding the match, it's going to be taking place at around 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Sunday, so keep an eye out for that. For the actual betting odds, Zverev's a massive favorite as he's around -280. Jarry's around +235. For the game spread, you can find +3 for Jarry at around even money, and Zverev -3 is around -120. For the over-under, you can find 23 at -110 on both sides. For set wagering, you can find over 2.5 sets at +140. Zverev in straight sets is +105. Jarry to win a set is around -135. Shop around if you can. If you want some alt game spreads, you can get Jarry +2.5 at +120, Zverev -2.5 at -150, Jarry +3.5 is -140, and Zverev -3.5 is +110. I also have some fun combo props. I have over-under aces at 13.5, slight juice to the over there. Over-under combined breaks at 3.5. -115 on both sides. Combined double faults, 4.5. The under is -155. The over's plus 125. And I even have the total number of minutes in the match. So you can bet the over or the under on how many minutes the match is going to actually take. And that line is being set at 108.5 minutes. So if you're doing the math at home, that is about an hour and 48 minutes. So there you go. Point is, though, you also have tiebreaker lines over under half a tiebreak at minus 110 on the over and minus 120 on the under. So starting off with the head-to-head between both players, Jari's actually been really good against Zverev in the past for no apparent reason. Zverev is 4-2, but the matches have been close. In fact, they have faced off 4 times on clay in their careers. Jari's actually won 2 of the 4 meetings, and he's won at least 1 set in 3 of those 4 meetings. Some of them are dated, but I have to at least mention it. Faced off in Geneva last year, and Jari actually won in straight sets, 7-6, 6-3. Faced off in Hamburg in 2019 in Zverev's home country of Germany, and Zverev ended up winning 6-4, 6-2. Faced off in Geneva again in 2019. Zverev did win in a final set breaker 10-8, so the point is close match, win 3. And they faced off in Barcelona in 2019, and Jari did win that one with a final set breaker as well. So very competitive with the head-to-heads on clay. As for the regular head-to-heads, faced off in Beijing last year, and Zverev did win in 3 sets. Faced off in Halle on grass last year, and Zverev did win 7-5, 6-3. And then you had the clay meetings that I mentioned before. So the point is that Jari has definitely hung around more than you might expect against Zverev, and that's why I think this line does look a bit steep, at least based on the head-to-head. Zverev being around minus 280 does feel a bit large. I understand it based on a ranking differential, but I do think that Jari should be closer, in my opinion, to plus, I'd say 180, plus 190. I think Zverev should be closer to like minus 220, minus 230, if I had to guess. So based on the value alone, in my opinion, based on where I think the line should be priced, I think there is some value on Jari. Now, as for the actual path of both players, it's been interesting because Zverev was coasting for most of the way through before losing a set to Tabilo in these semifinals, but he ended up beating Darderi in straight sets. Sorry, he ended up beating Vukic, actually, in straight sets, beat Darderi in straight sets, beat Borges in straight sets, beat Fritz in straight sets, killed Fritz, actually, 6-4, 6-3, and beat Tabilo in 3. As for Jari, he's had a much tougher go of it over the last couple of rounds, but overall his path has been fine. Beat Arnaldi in straight sets with an 8-6 score in the breaker in the second set, beat Napolitano in 3, beat Moore in 2, then beat Tsitsipas in 3, came back from a set down, and then ended up beating Paul in the 3 sets in the semis. So the point is, even though Zverev has had to spend less time on court, and he has been doing a better job at winning in straight sets, I think he has had the easier competition. Facing off against Vukic, Vukic is not good on clay whatsoever. Darderi's good on clay. I'll give him props there. Borges, I think, is kind of average on clay. I know he had him against Bublik early in the event, but that's because Bublik is atrocious in first sets. Borges, though, not exactly known for being a great clay player, so Zverev got the job done there. Fritz was very dominant, just that win itself, so that's a very good win for Zverev. And Tabilo is a solid clay player as well, so good back-to-back wins. As for Jari, Tsitsipas, we know, won a Masters 1000 title about a couple of weeks ago, so that's still a good win on clay. Paul is in great form, ended up beating Medvedev in straight sets, beat Hurkacz in 3. So I do think that both guys have had impressive wins over the last 2 rounds. Now, I think beating Arnaldi in the first round is actually pretty impressive in straight sets, especially with it being in Arnaldi's home country. Same thing with Napolitano. Napolitano is more of a challenger level guy, but still he had to beat 2 Italians back-to-back, which is not easy with this environment. So I do think that the path of both players is pretty comparable. You can argue that maybe Jari's faced off against either equal competition or maybe slightly worse. But the point is, I do think that both guys have looked pretty sharp so far in the event. Jari should not be fatigued, though, after having the 3-set marathon against Paul because there was a day off in between. So both guys, despite playing 3 sets, should be fine physically in this matchup, which takes us to the actual picks, or I should say my main leans for the actual matchup. I think it's going to be close. Now, do I think Zverev's going to win? Probably. I think that Zverev will eventually wear down Jari, and I do think that Jari's unforced errors will be an issue on some key points. But the point is, I do think that Jari can definitely win a set here, and I do think that based on the head-to-head, he should win a set here. He's won at least 1 set in 3 of the 4 clay meetings in the head-to-head. So with that being the case, I see a longer match. I don't mind the over in this one. You can find the over 23 at minus 110. You can find the over 2.5 sets at plus 140. I see a pretty competitive matchup where Zverev maybe breaks it open in the 3rd set, but I think you're going to get to a 3rd set. So I am going to go with the over in this one as my main thought. For the actual spread, I think I have to lean to Jari plus the games at 3.5. I just think that his serve and his overall firepower have really translated well to the courts here in Rome. And I do think that even though Zverev is capable of showcasing his powerful serve as well and his solid rally tolerance and skill, I do think Jari can definitely get Zverev to play ultra defensive at various points in this matchup, which might result in Zverev being on the back foot, which will allow Jari to come forward and to maybe even set up some good opportunities, hit some passing shots in the long term of these rallies. But I do think that Jari will do the best that he can to basically take the match out of Zverev's hands. I think he's going to try to unload and try to take early control of a lot of these rallies, and so far this worked out well for him in this tournament. So I think Jari can hang in there. Now, if Zverev would win in straight sets, would I be shocked? No. If Jari win in straight sets, would I be shocked? Probably. I think that Zverev should win a set minimum. I think Jari should win a set, but I do think that Zverev is going to eventually get the job done, as he is definitely the better player if I had to pair the two of them together. Now, as for everything else in the matchup, for the actual fun props, if you want Zverev for the player prop team total, you can find 12.5 or 13. I prefer 12.5 because I really don't want to push if you get a 7.5 or 7.6. And it ends in straight sets, so I probably would lean to the 12.5 juiced, but I'm not going to play it. I don't see much else, though. I think we kind of broke it down, and I think that's going to wrap it up. I would potentially go with the over on breaks at 3.5. If I am picking a 3-set matchup, and it is on clay, once again, you might end up just seeing more breaks than you anticipate. We saw Paul and Jari break each other multiple times throughout the course of that matchup. Zverev's been a good returner for his entire career. He could potentially take advantage of Jari's weaker second serve if the first serve percentage does dip. And Zverev, we know, second serve-wise can be a bit iffy at times. So I don't mind the over 3.5 breaks here combined at minus 110 or minus 115, I mean. I think there might be value on that prop. That's going to wrap it up, though, for the actual preview of the final. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. Before we continue that, do want to remind you once again that we are brought to you by Rhythm. If you're betting on NBA player props, then you need to download Rhythm, because Rhythm gives you a menu of the best player props for every single NBA playoff game, making it easy to go through and find the best props you can put your money on in seconds. Rhythm's predictions are backed by over 3 years of data and a team of data scientists and quants that focus on fine-tuning the algorithm to give you the best chance at winning. And a reminder, a couple of Game 7s coming up on Sunday. So if you want to end up getting some player prop action, and you might want to check out Rhythm before the games start on Sunday. From superstars to bench players, Rhythm has player prop lines on everybody, all backed by AI data without you needing to endlessly scroll a sportsbook. Rhythm allows you to create your own custom NBA models so you can get AI-backed moneyline spread and total picks for every playoff game. Start a free 7-day trial and start winning your NBA player props with Rhythm, available wherever you get your apps. We're also brought to you by Game Time. I know all of you, my personal love attending sport events in person, it's very difficult to actually find a ticketing platform that I could trust, but that changed once I found Game Time, because Game Time is the fast and easy way to find tickets for all the sporting events you need. Or maybe if you want tickets to concerts, or you want a comedy show, for example, Game Time does have a lot of tickets for a lot of different events. Maybe you want to go to the French Open. Maybe you want to go to Wimbledon or the U.S. Open, potentially. You have a lot of opportunities to find tickets, and Game Time is definitely the platform that I would recommend to get your tickets, because they have a lot of great features. They have last-minute deals. They also have images of seat views, which I've mentioned multiple times on the show, which is a great feature that I use all the time. Basically, anytime you are thinking about buying a seat, you can actually click the seat to see what the view will be like. So you know exactly what type of view you're going to get before you spend your hard-earned money. On top of that, they also have a lot of great baseball deals, because they're the official authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down closer to game time when you can, once again, find a lot of great last-minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. On top of that, they also have a great deal with us, because if you download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CFBX, you get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code CFBX for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. We've finished previewing the final in Rome. Now it is time for the lock and dog picks. For the lock, I think I am actually going to go with something involving the dog here. I think Zverev's going to win, but I do think that he's too big of a favorite. I think there might be value to expect this match to be a bit more of a marathon. Give me Jari to win a set at minus 125. We saw Zverev lose a set in the semifinal. Big reason for that, Tabilo's first serve points were very, very impressive. And you can see Jari potentially having the similar level of success if his first serve percentage is high. But you're looking at Tabilo winning 82% of his first serve points against Zverev. So I think you're looking at Jari, if the first serve is on, he should have a massive advantage. And I do think that Jari, based on the head-to-head, should be able to be in front in one of these sets. But the point is, he has won at least one set in 3 of the 4 head-to-head clay meetings. We saw them in Beijing last year on hard court. Jari did win a set in that one as well. Seems to me like Jari in the head-to-head has just had Zverev's number to some degree. Not exactly for winning these matches, but he has been able to have moments in the matches to win at least one set for a moral or a silver lining victory. So I think at the end of the day, Jari to win a set is too cheap at minus 125. And I do think that this price is a bit off in general. So give me Jari to win a set at minus 125. I think it should be closer to minus 135, minus 140. So I'll take the value before the line potentially moves. And moving on to the dog, I'm going to go with a niche prop, but I do like these odds quite a bit. Pretty decent plus price, actually. It's going to be the double fault market, and it is a 3-way market, so ties do lose if you end up taking a side, and we're going to take that risk. We're going to take Zverev to have the most double faults in the match at plus 175. Once again, ties lose, but Zverev to have more double faults than Jari. Now, a couple reasons why we're going to go with this prop. First reason, been very good in the head-to-head, as Zverev has had more double faults in 5 of the 6 head-to-head meetings. So Jari's actually a pretty reliable second server, and I think you're looking at a guy who might only double fault, I'd say, 2 times in this match, give or take. But Zverev's also had some double faulting issues in this event, as Zverev has had more double faults in 4 of his first 5 matches here in Rome. So Zverev has been a bit careless at times with the second serve. And I do think that Jari is a good enough server to avoid making that many double faults. And with that being the case, I think that plus 175 is a great deal. If I told you that something happened in 5 of 6 career meetings, and you can get the same thing to happen again in the 7th meeting at plus 175, would you take it? You probably would. So that's kind of the logic I'm going to go with. I think Zverev's second serve, we know for a long time, has been very, very weak, at least compared to his first serve. And we have seen Zverev struggle with nerves before in the past. Maybe he gets the yips again, starts double faulting. We'll see what happens. I believe he had 5 double faults, I think, in the semifinal matchup against Tabilo. Point is, though, this price feels a bit off. I think Zverev should be around potentially plus 120, plus 130. But 175, I think, is an insane price for, once again, him doing what he's already done 5 of the last 6 meetings between them. So for that reason, I am going to go with the double fault prop as my dog. So once again, the picks for the final in Rome. The lock's going to be on Jari to win a set at minus 125. The dog's going to be on Zverev, most double faults in the match at plus 175. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. A reminder for the next episode, we'll be back once again to get into Geneva and Lyon. So we're going to preview the Djokovic tournament now in Geneva, and we're going to go through Lyon as well before the French Open starts in about a week or 2. So either way, point is, I think it starts technically the 26th. So about 8 days, give or take. But point is, French Open's around the corner. Then we got Wimbledon. So tennis action heating up right around Grand Slam time. Until next time, though, find me on Twitter at Reichel Radio. Find me on the NBA show. Find me on the WNBA show. Find me on the bunch of other podcasts, the NFL show, and MLB show. I get the point. A reminder, once again, don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube, and don't forget to rate and review the podcast on Spotify or Apple. Until next time, though, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.